You're listening to the WBT Podcast with Michael Lodge. Listen to all of our podcasts at www.wbtpod.com. Stay informed. Let's get started.
And welcome to a Monday on the WBT. This is Michael Lodge. I'm glad that you joined me. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about several different issues. First, we're going to start with Kobe Bryant. Stay with me, won't you? I'll be right back.
This is brought to you by Lodge & Co., a business and tax advisory firm where your success is our goal. Call us today toll-free at 888-681-1518. Or visit us at www.lodge-co.com and learn more about what we can do for you. Lodge & Co., your source for sound business and tax services.
Sad thing, isn't it? Now, I'm originally from Los Angeles and lived there for so long, so the Lakers were a part of my life and a part of every Los Angelean that lives there. And Kobe Bryant came into our lives at a very, very young age. But if you study his whole professional career and his personal life, Kobe Bryant told a story. I hope that you all paid attention to it. The one story that he told all the time was his pursuit of excellence. I think it's an admirable point of life, point of view, practice of life, to always think about excellence, having that good content that you provide to people, that they learn something from you. And that happened in Kobe's life. If you look over his life, he has done so many good things in starting companies and helping people, and the list just goes on. I was taking a walk yesterday. I always try to take a walk on a Sunday. And normally when I walk, I don't have my cell phone out. And I'm not paying attention. If I am, I have an earpiece plugged into my cell phone. I'm listening to a podcast or something else. I'm an addict on podcasts. But the news came over that said that he had been killed in a crash. He and his daughter. I had to sit down just for a little bit and just kind of catch up on what happened. And I realized, and I think that a lot of us realize, that he was a good guy, and in the blink of an eye, he was taken away. Isn't it funny? Life is like that, right? In the blink of an eye, we're born, we're conceived. In another blink of an eye, our life is taken from us. And I began to think, look at what he did between one blink to the other blink. He accomplished so much. And then I think we have to take a look inward to ourselves and say, what have we accomplished this stuff? And so far I haven't blinked and I'm not dead yet. But what have I accomplished? What have I done for others? What new idea have I come up with? What book have I written? What person have I lent a helping hand to? What have I done with my life from the first blink to where I'm blinking today? And what is my story going to be when my last blink comes along? I think that's the question and the good lesson that we learn from Kobe's death, is that he was a good guy in between those blinks. So sometimes he stumbled, and we all stumble as humans, right? We all make those bad decisions. But he lived up to the bad decisions, and that's where he did well at. And I think that it made me think, as I started off on my walk just a little bit more, what is my story going to be? Colby told his story, and we knew it by heart almost from one blink to the other blink. What is our story going to be? And I think that's the question that you and I have to ask ourselves. So we mourn the death of a very good guy who was a very good family man who loved his children with all of his heart. And we mourn the death of his daughter who was up and coming, who wanted to become a good basketball player. And she was a good basketball player. And she had a dad that loved her with all of his heart, might, and soul. And that's where the story ends. With us loving Colby. And I think that's where we have to ask ourselves the question, what is our story going to be? From one blink to the next blink. So we're going to miss him. We're going to think about him every once in a while because he really did achieve some great things in his life. We'll miss him. We'll think about him. And today we keep in our hearts and in our prayers his family, because they lost 2 individuals in their life yesterday. And we'll pray for the other families who had members of their family on board that helicopter. We'll pray for them too. When people are in pain, we pray. So let's move forward here. Let's move forward. Now, as you know, I have been talking a lot about California Assembly Bill 5, who has hurt a lot of businesses and small businesses in the state of California. Because we've got some greedy politicians there that want their money, that want their hands on every cent of money that you guys are making out there. And so they've decided to attack independent contractors. Now, I'm in Palm Beach, but I'm still protecting my clients in Orange County and Los Angeles who are considered companies that hire independent contractors. And I'm trying to protect them as much as possible. So I want to put something, I want to give you some notification that there is going to be a rally in Sacramento. It's going to be on the north steps of the California State Capitol on January 28th at 10 a.m. Let me repeat that again. January 28th at 10 a.m. on the north steps of the Capitol, of the California State Capitol in Sacramento. And the sponsors of this is Assemblyman, let me get down closer because my eyes are really bad. Is Assemblyman Kevin Kelly and Assemblywoman Melissa Melendez. Now, I know Melissa Melendez, and let me tell you, she is a really dynamic assembly person. She really fights hard for her district, and now she's running for the state senate. But she really fights hard. And if you've ever listened to her on the assembly floor making her arguments, dynamite, excellent, to the point, right on spot. But the problem is you've got a assembly that is controlled by the Democrats, both the assembly and the Senate. So the Democrats are dominant, and any time that she presents a bill, it's really, really hard. But she does have a bill, I believe it's AB 1928. I believe that's the bill number. And that's to repeal the full AB 5. Then there's also a AB 1925, and that changes the language so it helps small businesses. Now, it still needs work because there's a lot of categories in there that have not been covered, but is being hit hard by these people who have always been independent contractors, have always worked out of the house, have always worked part-time or full-time at whatever they're doing. And now they're being classified as employees. So now they're no longer able to work whenever they want to. They've lost a lot of their part-time gigs because of this new ruling. So it's hurt a lot of people who are trying to start their small businesses, are trying to get up and get going and become a entrepreneur and an independent person that operates their own business, but they're stopped now because the state assembly has decided that they know better what you should be and what you should do with your life and how you should work. That is when you have a socialist government and they tell you what to do. And California is at that place. So once again, I want you to get involved in AB 5 and the repeal of AB 5. Remember, it's this Tuesday, which is tomorrow, January 28th, 10 a.m., North Steps of the California State Capitol in Sacramento. I'm encouraging you, drive up there. What is it, like a 6-hour drive from Los Angeles? What, 8-hour drive? Drive up there, get involved. Leave early in the morning. Get involved. Leave tonight, but get involved. Because the only way that you can take back this out-of-control Sacramento, the Assembly and the Senate, is by you getting involved. Get involved. Come on, California. Let's get some balls and get involved, okay? That's my new motto for you guys in California. Get some balls and get involved. I wanted to talk about one other thing that kind of concerned me. And I've thought about this several different times. I've talked about it so many different times. And that is, our nation has forgotten about the history of our country. Schools no longer teach the history. When I went to school, we were taught to memorize the dates, memorize the people, memorize the cities, memorize the states, memorize. We were even encouraged, well, not encouraged, we were told, to write reports about whatever historical thing that we were studying at that time. Even our state history, we knew what our state history. When I was in high school and I was in the state of Washington, we studied the Washington state history. We had a book and we studied it from forwards to backwards, and that's what we were tested on. And the United States history and politics and everything else. But today, you don't get that. In schools today, they get very little. If you ask your children today, ask them any question about history, they might or they might not. They say that 1 in 3 Americans know anything about the history of their country or even of their state. We are uninformed because of the type of schooling that is being done and the political philosophy or the agenda of the educational system. I hate to say that. I hate saying that at all. But it's true. Because when I was in school, we were taught history. We were tested on it, forwards and backwards. We even put plays on about it. History was very important. We had to know the Constitution. We had to know the Bill of Rights. But now, no one knows. Even if you look at these people who walk along the streets and they conduct interviews and they say, who was XYZ? They can't, and the people being asked the question cannot answer the question because they don't know their history, even current day history. What's happening right now, they don't know. So I want to encourage each and every single one of you. If you are a parent, I think the responsibility is up to you now. I remember when I was a kid, we used to stop almost at when my dad would say to us, hey, it's a Saturday afternoon, let's go for a drive. And we would end up in the places that you would never think of. Well, I remember one time we were living in California. He says, hey, let's go for a drive. We ended up in Reno, Nevada. And I remember that because I got my first silver dollar there. That's when they were handing out silver dollars, so you know how old I was. But everywhere we traveled, we stopped at every single historical monument. We took a picture next to the historical monument. We knew exactly what was fought there, what Indian tribe was fighting that war, who was fighting it. We knew where Lewis and Clark went over the mountains and trails, trying to map out the Pacific Northwest and this side of the nation, because the country at that time had very few states, if you remember. So they were mapping it out to turn it into all of the states. But we knew the Lewis and Clark and the Lewis and Clark Trail. We knew all about it because we were taught it. If you ask them today, if you ask children today, who is Lewis and Clark, they cannot tell you. Even though that is a very important part of the history, because it mapped out the United States. We knew exactly what was in Washington and Oregon. They didn't have state names at that time, but they knew the trail and knew how to get there. So we need to know more and more about history. If you don't know, we have so many good books out there that can teach you. There's so many documentaries out there that can teach you. Don't listen to what's being taught in the schools, because you're being taught a little tiny speck of history, when you need to know what happened and why we became a nation, why people came to this country and what they were trying to escape from. So you have the responsibility to know the history of your nation. Even if you came here from another country, you are now part of the United States, and you need to know that history. And there's so many opportunities for you to do that. One of the things that really gets to me, now I have traveled across the United States probably now 10 times. And I've taken a different route every single time. Sometimes if I'm in a truck, I take the same route. But because when I was moving out here, I took the easiest route, the straightest route. And I didn't go off the path. But when I'm in a car, I go off the path and I explore and I learn. And as you're driving across America, there are so many different places where you can stop in Oklahoma, in New Mexico. One thing that I truly loved traveling across America, I went up through the northern part and went into New Mexico and Arizona, into the Indian tribes over there, the Hopi Indians, the Navajo. And as you're driving along, you can listen to their Indian tribe radio cast that they have. And they're still playing the Indian songs. They're still giving the local news. And there are still, as you're driving along, the historical parts of the Indians and what happened to them and everything else. Driving across America, do it at least once so that you can experience what America is truly all about. Let me tell you, between New York and California, it's a whole different country out there. These are people who sit down, they'll talk with you, they'll laugh at you. They don't care who you are, they will talk with you. They will tell you their stories. They will tell you what happened in that part of the country. Because they know it, because it's been passed down from people to people to people. That's how it used to be in my family. I remember on Saturday afternoons sitting around at the dinner table with my grandfather and grandparents and cousins and aunts. And you know what we would talk about? We would talk about the politics of the day. And at that time, it was, and I specifically remember this in my mind, at that time, it was John F. Kennedy against Richard M. Nixon. I remember this conversation so fast. So good, I mean. And we would talk about it. We would talk about what the differences were. Now, at that time, the conversation was Kennedy was the first Catholic to ever become a president of the United States. And that was like a taboo thing, because back then they thought that the Catholics were the Antichrist. That's how people in America thought at that time, because the conversation has been brought down from the Church of England and how they separated from the Catholic Church. And so that whole historical thing passed down and passed down. But things were changing. Like everything in our life, in our country, things change. But we used to sit around and we'd talk about history and we'd talk about the politics of the day. And at that time, Henry Cabot Lodge was running with Richard M. Nixon. Now, Henry Cabot Lodge was a very well-respected statesman. I was just finishing his book just the other day, and he was the transition team between Truman and Eisenhower. And as I was reading the book, the same conversations he was having regarding what they could say, what they couldn't say, what the national security issues were, everything was exactly the same thing as what the discussions that Trump was having in 2016 when he was becoming president. The transition team between powers, between presidents. So you have to go back and you have to read these books, and you've got to be able to travel across America and understand what the history of this great nation is. Don't take what your teachers are telling you because you're just getting minor bits and pieces that they want to tell you. There's a whole story out there. Remember what I've always told you guys. You have a story to tell and you have stories to listen to. And that's how we become better people. All of you, get out there. Know the story, the history of our great country. If only 1 in 3 of you know it, those of you who are the one, start telling it to the other 2 people, because they might be sitting right beside you. Let's get to it, guys. Hey, this is Monday. Today we have the continuation of the impeachment of President Trump. We'll hear from the White House attorneys. This should be interesting. I thought Saturday's response was very good because they were very smart. They took everything that had just been discussed by Adam Schiff and then they began to break it down. So it was fresh in the senators' minds. So I think they did a very good job there. I'm excited to see what they say today. Unfortunately, I'm going to be working on tax work for my clients today. So I'm going to have to listen. I can't watch. Tax time. You know how it is. Okay, this is Mike Lodge. I'll talk with you soon. If you have any questions, send me a text to 818-252-5682. Again, that's 818-252-5682. And I'll be more than happy to answer or respond. Talk with you soon. Have a great Monday. We'll see you on Tuesday. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the WBT with Michael Lodge. Join us again tomorrow as we explore more about business and taxes. Follow us on iHeartRadio and go to our podcast website at www.wbtpod.com and listen to all of our podcasts and read our blogs.
This podcast is produced by Michael Lodge, fully focused on content.